Yes, we are live. Good morning.
Okay.
I'm pleased to welcome you to the World Forum Women in Science 8th International Conference for Women in Science Without Borders, organized by Women in Science Without Borders and Traces&Dreams in collaboration with Fondazione Musica Roma and Festival delle Scienze. This year conference is organized in a blended form. We are going to have 3 days of online conference and 1 networking day in Rome, Italy on Friday. It is the first one held in Italy and the first one held in Europe. I want to thank you, the management of the Fondazione Roma and Festival delle Scienze, for hosting us. And I want to thank Amal Amin for accepting to host this conference in Italy. I'm really grateful also to all scientific organizations who have been participating and contributing to this conference. The National Institute for Nuclear Physics, the National Institute for Astrophysics, the National Research Council, the Italian National Agency for New Technology, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development, Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, and the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research. The online conference will be held under 3 days under the title of Envisioning Tomorrow, Science for the SDGs and New Partnership for Sustainable Futures. And we will have 1 day in-meeting networking on Friday, where we are going to concentrate on women in science, cooperations, science diplomacies, and envisioning tomorrow. As you have seen from the title Envisioning Tomorrow, Science for the SDGs and New Partnerships for Sustainable Futures, we wanted to emphasize the importance of science for the SDGs. And we wanted also to emphasize specifically this year the SDG number 17, partnerships for the goals. The collaborations between Women in Science Without Borders and Traces&Dreams is one example, but we know how much is needed right now to bring together the South and the North part of the world. We are very thankful to Festival delle Scienze, Parco della Musica in Italy, to host us, also because from a really symbolic point of view, we wanted to emphasize the necessity to bring science out of academia and to have a transdisciplinary approach and emphasizing the importance of culture as well. I really want to thank all the researchers who have been submitting abstracts from all over the world. And I want to thank you all the speakers who are going to present under the next 3 days. And of course, the audience that is going to participate, because this is not only a symbol of the strengthness of the scientific community, but there are collaborations that are very much needed right now. And this is a proof that there is people who are dreaming, if you want, who are doing, and really there to work for a more sustainable, equal, and peaceful futures, what is very much needed. The title that we have chosen, Envisioning Tomorrow, is really an invitation to emphasize the importance of science to shape and create the future, but also an invitation on reflecting about the importance of asking ourselves what kind of future we are creating and we are building. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here, and I will give to Amal Amin, the founder and chair of this conference.
Thank you, Nerina, and thank you for your valuable words. Now I will give short introduction or short message. Okay, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear esteemed audience, dear all, greetings. It's my great pleasure as a founding chair of both Women in Science Without Borders initiative and the World Forum for Women in Science to welcome you all at the World Forum for Women in Science Italy version, which is the 8th global meeting of Women in Science Without Borders initiative. WISWAB is a dream which becomes true. where I was dreaming to have global multidisciplinary inclusive initiative, which may gather all stakeholders from all walks of knowledge and life, including scientists, policymakers, industry, public, youth, and others, regardless of all political and cultural borders in one platform, where science becomes the dominant language for communication and collaboration for the sake of sustainable development goals and for humanity. Women in Science Without Borders initiative was founded in 2017 in Egypt, a gender-inclusive initiative with slogan Science for Sustainable Development, and now it distributes over more than 70 countries to connect people and the world with science across all borders for inclusion of all partners and stakeholders to work together and move forward to attain sustainable development goals, including gender equality, SDG 5. World Forum for Women in Science was held twice in Egypt, once in Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, Malaysia, and special event in Iraq, which was dedicated to refugee and at-risk scholars and scientists. Via WISWAP, Women in Science Without Borders, we confirm the role of science, scientific international relations, and science diplomacy across disciplines in solving the critical problems with common and global concerns. Women in Science Without Borders activities from the beginning were supported by big international organizations, industry, and stakeholders, as International Science Council, United Nations bodies, the World Academy of Sciences, UNESCO TOAS, IEB, Inter-Academy Partnership, Global Young Academy, which I am proudly one of its co-founders, Global Young Academy, National Science Academies, media, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and others. That dream wouldn't happen without the support of all friends and collaborators. From our current event in Italy, I would like to thank and acknowledge the efforts of our partners, Traces&Dreams, led by Dr. Nerina, and Festival delle Scienze, led by Dr. Vittorio. Also, I would like to thank all speakers, participants, audience, sponsors, organizing, and scientific committees. Thank you all. The theme of current forum is Envisioning Tomorrow, Science for SDGs and New Partnerships for Sustainable Future, where we are living in an interconnected world. So building sustainable future is a shared responsibility and endeavor among all stakeholders worldwide to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, including SDG 5, concerning gender equality, which need partnership, cooperation, and stimulation of the international cooperation, especially the science-based one. The forum brings speakers and participants from over 60 countries, including scientists, students, practitioners, journalists, policymakers, industrialists, and other key stakeholders in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, including medicine and social sciences. Finally, I hope for the future that our movement will be a real and crucial source of making required change and development worldwide with science. And I hope science becomes a main source of peace, happiness, and welfare of humanity. At the end, I would like to thank my family, friends, colleagues who always support me, and thank you all. Thanks a lot, Narine.
Thank you so much, Amal, and you are always an inspiration, and I'm really happy to work with you.
Yeah, thanks.
And then now I would like to invite Vittorio Bo, whom I really thank again for having us. And please, Vittorio, go ahead. Vittorio, we cannot hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Nerina, and thank you, Amal. We knew last year, and we began a very profitable relationship. And it's really a pleasure and an honor to be part of this forum, particularly in this moment, because we need more science, because science is an opportunity to bring peace, collaboration, inspiration in all the parts of the world. Festival delle Scienze enlarge. We enlarge our audience and our partnerships, and we are very grateful for this. and to Marina, Mal, and all of you. I think it's really important that events like your organization, or it's more than an event, your organization, or Festival delle Scienze could enforce the relationship between countries, between scientific research centers and organizations. And so, please, thank you, really, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think it will be a very, very special venue in on air and in life. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Vittorio.
Sorry, this year the title of the festival is Mistakes and Wonders, or Errors and Wonders, because through the mistakes, many times, scientists, researchers found the wonder of the discovery. And through all the part of our work, we could live this opportunity. And mistakes or errors are not a failure. Sometimes, more times, a possibility to rethink and to build a new way to find our purpose and our feeling and our mission also. Your forum is one of the best example and best practice in the world in this way. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vittorio. And we have also this very connection about the wonder and the envisioning that is, of course, very, very much related. Now I would like to invite Segretaria Delegazione Beatrice Manassero. She's Deputy Chief for Space, Multilateral Scientific Cooperation and Intellectual Property, Directorate General for Country Promotion from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy. Thank you so much, Beatrice, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me for the introduction. I would also like to thank Professor Amin and Director Bo for their inspiring words. I would just like to have a few words to introduce this commendable event. So distinguished organizers, distinguished speakers, and distinguished guests that are following us online, it is a pleasure for me to be here today with you all, although it's just a virtual meeting, and taking part as a representative for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy for the opening ceremony of this event. We as a ministry, we pose great value and attention to the science diplomacy and the value it holds, and the crucial role it plays in our international relations. Today, and in the days following today, we will hear about the power of networking, and I'm sure we can all agree that scientific cooperation can foster dialogue and long-standing partnerships between countries. I would like to take upon this opportunity to mention that although science is instrumental in the progress of humankind, there are undeniable existing inequalities in the access to it, which is why, as a ministry, we believe that knowledge sharing and capacity building in the Global South are essential tools for the improvement of the living standards of local communities. We are convinced that this approach can bring prosperity and promote stability. And it is by no accident that this is one of the objectives of our current G7 presidency this year. I would also like to mention that since scientific research is a key factor in the achievement of the SDGs, we need the contribution of all innovative minds, regardless of their location in the world. We believe that it is only by investing in skills and competencies of the new generations of scientists all around the world that we can truly have and truly achieve a global benefit. Believing in these principles, as a ministry, we are honored to host, and as a country as well, we are honored to host on our territory a few international organizations devoted to building scientific and technological capabilities in less developed countries. I am talking about the ICTP, for example, the ICGB, the TWAS, and the IAP, and finally, but not because it's less important, the OWSD. They are all located in Trieste, to which the Italian government contributes with more than 30 million euros annually, because we believe that it's important to foster and continue promoting the wonderful job and the meaning that it stands behind it. With the recent grant, in fact, cross-border projects, programs for young students, and women empowerment in science, they share our vision on growth diplomacy in the international landscape, activating exchanges between north and south of regions of our planet on scientific topics. They work towards peaceful and fruitful interactions across countries. Focusing on female participation in the scientific community, they strengthen social equality and foster the harmonious fulfillment of gender balance. Besides Trieste, we also host and support the UNESCO World Water Assessment Programme. With its early report on the freshwater situation worldwide, it helps governments and institutions like us in making informed decisions in adopting responsible behaviors and policies that are about this invaluable good. In line with the UNESCO SDGs, the WWAP also makes its priority to address the gender disparities in the water sector. In this perspective, we have recently worked on the definition of the road program called Piano Mattei for Africa, which I'm sure you all have heard about, with a package of projects aimed at the improvement of local economies and social well-being. We intend to focus on the rural communities, on the use of renewable energies, on education plans structured to produce employment. Food security is also central. Modernization of agricultural techniques and studies on climate models could enhance the resilience of those regions against disastrous circumstances. We can leverage the most recent technologies in many fields and bring life to productive activities. We deem crucial to keep a respectful partnership mindset within the framework of sustainable development that we consider the foundation of any future projection. I would like to close by underlining the relevance of gender equality in this landscape. The wording you have chosen for the forum, Envisioning Tomorrow, is full of expectations. Your agenda is rich in debates on facing challenges, removing barriers, and bridging gaps in many situations where women are kept aside or discriminated. We also work in the same direction. With the ICGB, we sponsored a study program for women in science. We participated in the film festival Women's Science Development, presented by OWSD. We're about to award, at the beginning of next week, the winner of a science contest for female scientists in occasion of our scientific attaché conference in Turin. And we did the same last year. Being here today is just another sign of our interest in this theme and our strong belief that our joint effort can produce significant effects. Thank you so much for your kind attention and have a great beginning and continuation for this event.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And I thank you also specifically for your team also to support us in the connection with the organization in Trieste. They are going also to present and be part of also of the networking event. And the decision of being also here in Italy, we felt that is a good point to start in Europe, also to emphasize the role of Italy as a bridge in and over the Mediterranean. And Roma with its position as a transition between a long past, but the need also to look towards the future. Thank you so much, Beatrice, and thank you so much, Vittorio, for joining us for this introductory panel. I know that you might need to leave. I don't know, Vittorio, if you can stay with us or you need to leave as well. But I thank you all, and we can now start the introductory panel, the importance of networking, science diplomacy, and partnership. And as already mentioned, the networking, science diplomacy, and partnership are really key across all the sessions. And I would like to invite Amal Amin to introduce our first speakers.
Yeah.
I have to go, I'm so sorry, because I have a conflicting meeting now, but it was lovely to be part of this welcoming event, and thank you so much for inviting us.
Thanks a lot for joining us.
So thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. See you in Rome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Vittorio. Thank you. Beatrice.
Thanks, Narina, for introduction. I will begin the first session by our esteemed guest or esteemed speaker, which is unfortunately couldn't come or couldn't join us live, but I think she sent a video to
Yes.
Narina, and we will display video. But at first, I have to give some introduction about her. The first speaker would be, or the first guest will be Professor Quraisha Abdul Karim. She is TWA's president right now, but she's a very famous scientist, a leading infectious diseases epidemiologist, whose seminal contributions spanning over 3 decades have shaped the global HIV prevention landscape, notably in prevention technologies for women. She is the Associate Scientific Director of CABRISA, professor in clinical epidemiology, Columbia University, and the Pro-Vice Chancellor for African Health University, President of TWAS. She is an elected member of the National Academy of Medicine and Fellow of African Academy of Sciences, the Royal Society of South Africa. Her research contributions have been recognized nationally and internationally with over 30 honors, including TWA's Lenovo Prize, the other prizes from the President of South Africa, and other many awards. Okay, Narina.
Greetings, friends and colleagues. I am Quraisha Abdul Karim, President of the World Academy of Sciences, and it is a singular honor to be part of this august gathering. Let me start by congratulating Dr. Amin and the organizers of the 8th World Forum for Women in Science 2024 on achieving this important milestone. I have witnessed this forum grow from its humble beginnings in 2016 to becoming established as an important global player, playing a central and key role in ensuring that the voices of women, including women scientists, are heard loudly and clearly. This has not been an easy journey, and I commend the leadership for pursuing their vision with passion, dedication, persistence, and perseverance. I'm also excited to see this partnership between Women in Science Without Borders and Traces&Dreams, and the theme for this forum, namely Envisioning Tomorrow, Science for the SDGs, and New Partnerships for Sustainable Futures. As the synergy of partnerships are powerful and the theme is apt and timely, the presence of young women leading this charge is also impressive and inspiring. Science, indeed, is about envisaging challenges that we will face in the future and asking the right research questions and building the capacity today so that we are better prepared for tomorrow. This gathering to ensure a gender-inclusive, sustainable future through partnership, collaboration and networking, and harnessing the power of science, technology, and innovation creates an opportunity for all participants to explore new pathways towards achieving the United Nations Global Agenda 2030 and creating a world where everyone has equal opportunities to reach their full potential and ensure planetary health and security for all. The role of science, technology, and innovation is a key mechanism to generate the evidence to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals, an important pilot work led by UNDESA on the development of roadmaps for the use of STIs to accelerate the SDGs illustrate this very eloquently. Importantly, empowering and including women scientists remains essential for both their scientific contributions as well as being role models for future generations of girls and adolescents. Women remain underrepresented in specific scientific disciplines, particularly in engineering, mathematics, and IT. Programs that actively invest in targeted investments to bridge these gaps remains a challenge for many girls, particularly in low and middle income countries, and needs to be urgently addressed. The full potential of science, technology, and innovation cannot be realized if gender disparities persist and we exclude half the scientific voices. Our hope lies in global solidarity to realize the shared common vision articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals and adopted by member states. Indeed, it is through meaningful and synergistic partnerships and collaborations that respects our common humanity, regardless of gender, geospatial, or political borders, that this hope can be translated into action. This forum provides an excellent opportunity to move the Sustainable Development Agenda forward and ensure that the voices of women are heard, their contributions to solutions, including through science, technology, and innovation, are valued and recognized, and that the presence of women where key decisions about human and planetary health and security locally, nationally, or globally is a non-negotiable. I wish you well in your deliberations during this forum. Look forward to learning about key outcomes and recommendations from this gathering. I'm only sorry that I can't join you in person, but know you can look forward to an inspiring meeting and great outcomes are anticipated. Thank you for your attention.
Inspiring.
Very, very inspiring. And now I will introduce and invite and to speak Angela Liberatore. She's head of the scientific department at the European Research Council, which manages the evaluations and monitoring of projects submitted to the European Research Council in all scientific domains and undertakes ex ante and ex post analysis of European Research Council funded research. She previously worked in the research programs on environmental and climate, social science and humanities, and then international cooperation in the Directorate General for Research. Among her highlights, she co-chaired the Social Protection Group for the UN Research Roadmap for COVID-19 recovery, worked on science diplomacy issues in the European Union neighborhood, contributed to the European Council White Paper on European governance, and in the negotiation of the Kyoto Protocol on climate change. Angela holds a PhD in political and social sciences and a degree in philosophy. Angela, we are really happy to have you, and I welcome you to start.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be with you, even if online, from Brussels in this case. And it's really an honor to be part of this opening of the Women Forum for Women in Science, with such a group of distinguished co-panelists, including, of course, my predecessor in the panel online. Thank you, Professor Amal Amin, a visionary founder and chair of this forum, and thanks Nerina Finetto, who is the director of this edition. Well, we know that we are living in a troubled world. We are part or witnessing terrible tragedies unfolding, with many of them being human-caused, from wars to famine, deforestation, depletion of biodiversity, anthropogenic emissions that contribute to climate change and its many impacts, including on health and water, topics well addressed in the forum, and many more. Science, even in a troubled world, is so important and positive. In its broad sense, science, including all areas of knowledge development from engineering, life sciences to social sciences and humanities, is a key factor in identifying and understanding the challenge we face and in designing possible solutions. It underlies the pursuit of each and all of the Sustainable Development Goals. To be able to flourish and to provide benefits to all, scientific research must continue to be based on openness, international cooperation, research integrity, independence, academic freedom, and also equality and inclusiveness, a focus of this very important forum, considering also human security for all. It is important that researchers can work together across borders of any kind, that science diplomacy, which has been mentioned and is part of this important opening, is mobilized also when other forms of diplomacy are under strain. It's a very important resource that we always need to keep alive also in the more, let's say, difficult conditions. Brain circulation as opposed to brain drain is also very important, especially for the young researchers and students, to continue nourishing the dialogue between people and between different and complementary scientific culture and tradition. And it's also important to continue paying attention to gender equality and to inclusiveness of diversity in many different ways. The forum is a great example of all these interactions, openness, exchanges, giving very important focus on the issues of equality and different perspectives. So what are, let's get now more practical, what are some of the experiences, some of the good practices, but also challenges that I can contribute on behalf of the European Research Council, which is a European Union program, part of the larger framework research program Horizon Europe. And we fund frontier research in all fields of sciences, from life sciences, physics, math, engineering, and social sciences and humanities. So I will focus briefly on three main contributions and reflection. One, which is mainly on issues of gender, women in science and diversity more broadly. The second on international cooperation and global peer review. And last but not least, sustainable developments in and by research. So our work at ERC on women in science started very early on in 2008. ERC was established in 2007, so that was immediately taken into account with a dedicated working group on gender of our scientific council. Then in 2021, the Scientific Council decided to broaden the scope of this working group to include also the focus on diversity more broadly, to ensure that we promote diversity and prevent any form of discrimination in line with Article 21 of the European Union Charter of Fundamental Rights, meaning fostering the importance of not discriminating on any ground, gender, values, religious, ethnicity, age, or any other. We have been implementing a series of measures. So it's not only a plan, we started implementing measures to promote gender equality and enhancing diversity. For example, for our applicants to our open call for proposal, we introduced measures about parental leave, where female applicants can get immediately 18 months extension before applying. And this we saw per child. And this had an important and visible impact on the success rate of women applying to the European Research Council calls. We also have provisions to extend the eligibility of applicants to our calls on grounds such as long-term illnesses, including taking care of people in the family with such long-term illnesses, disability, seeking asylum, major natural and human-caused disasters. All this to make sure that people in different conditions and specific situations can all compete more or less or as much as possible on the same ground. During evaluation, we also systematically have briefing on unconscious bias to counteract bias which we know exist, conscious or most of the time unconscious, in peer review. And they are about gender, but they are about languages, background in the scientific culture and others, and so on. We also have other provisions, such as the possibility for applicants to report on life events that could have an impact on their scientific productivity. For example, the COVID impact was addressed in our call for proposals. And we keep monitoring both the applications, the evaluation, and the conduct of research by our grantees and applicants and evaluators, and ourselves, of course, in the House, first of all. We had a number of outreach activity. I will only mention the annual conference on research and diversity in frontier research that was held in November 23, with 3 key away points. One is the importance of adopting intersectional approaches to enable to capture how individuals belonging to multiple societal and group identities, whether by ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, income, and more, need to be taken into account to better understand how those factors play in research or the subject of research. Including a diverse range of participants in research, both in the teams and the design, ensures that research findings are more representative. We had important cases about how, for example, addressing skin cancer in different kinds of skin is extremely important if we want to understand really skin cancer in general in human populations and not only in one. The same for social research on anything from migration to labor situations, or even engineering, how prostheses and other things. Considering diversity in research design also allow for the development of cultural sensitive methodology. I think in the conference there is something about the importance of decolonizing science, and in fact the importance of diversity to avoid what is sometimes called parachute science is very important. Let's go to the second point more briefly on international cooperation and global peer review in ERC. All our evaluation panels are composed of experts from any area of the world. It's our scientific council identifies experts, evaluators based on their track record, expertise, totally irrespective of nationalities. And all our evaluation panels are balanced, of course, taking into account first and foremost the kind of expertise necessary for the evaluation and the complementarity of different kinds of expertise, but also trying as much as possible to have a balance in terms of gender and geography as well, which of course can be quite different in different fields. For example, in mathematics, it's more difficult to have gender equality than, I don't know, in sociology, for example. As European Research Council, we have international arrangements with 13 countries around the world, from Brazil to South Africa, India, Korea, Canada, and many more, to facilitate the exchange of researchers, by which ERC grantee can host colleagues from those countries for certain periods of time. We also have fellowship schemes within Europe. Also within Europe, not everybody has the same conditions in science and beyond. As well as mentoring initiatives to help researchers to become, if you like, more prepared for good competitiveness in research. And I'm pleased to announce that soon we will launch one mentoring scheme also with our colleagues in Ukraine. To finish on the third point on sustainable development, we are a bottom-up program. It means we do not ask researchers what they should be focusing on. We do not put topics that researchers need to choose in our calls. They just apply to evaluation panels which broadly define research fields, and they choose their topics and the way to address the topic with total freedom. They only have to demonstrate, which of course is a very important demonstration to make, that they are wanting to push the frontiers of science, doing something new, reach some breakthrough. Being curiosity driven, some people might think, surely not the people in the forum, that, researchers are just interested in their own curiosity or maybe their own personal success. But actually, we demonstrated many and many times that just by asking researchers, do the research you think matters and that can advance our understanding and knowledge, they actually contribute to so many important areas. Our feedback to policy activity, and my colleague Eleni Zika will report on that in the closing session of this important forum, demonstrated, for example, and we have all reports published for your use if you are interested, to addressing issues ranging from sustainable food production and consumption, biodiversity protection, challenges to democracy. And right now we will present a report on artificial intelligence. Well, we did prepare it already and shortly, so I will need to leave you. There will be a report commissioners Margaret Vestager, Vice President of the Commission, and Commissioner Iliana Ivanova, Commissioner for Research in the EU, about the responsible uptake of artificial intelligence in science, something, of course, that it's important to us all in all parts of the world, in all fields of science. Just to give you maybe a couple of examples of projects we funded that link gender dimension and sustainable development, very, very briefly. One of them, it's called Gender Climatemic, and it's about the international and internal climate-induced migration, gendered inequalities and governance, trying to understand migration decision and exploring migration experience. This is by Professor Nina Sarawi at the CNRS in France with her team. And this is about addressing what the World Bank estimates to be a strong exodus from their home of people by 2050, due to partly at least climate change, with figures going into 260 million people that could be forced to leave home, including because of climate change, while not only. And this project tries to address the gap of international and internal induced migration, looking at the experience of women and gendered participation with comparative and participatory approaches in Mexico, Morocco, Malaysia, and other parts of the world. Another one is called Female-Led, Female Leadership and Effects from African Droughts by Axel Sundrum in Göteborg University. All these people, of course, collaborate with researchers in other parts of the world. And this one looks at the impact of weather-related disasters like droughts on women political leadership in African countries, looking specifically at South African community. And this, of course, is important for sustainable development as well as for women empowerment. I will not go in other projects. We have some, for example, linking also conflicts and sustainable development issues. But let me just conclude with the word of three amazing women, 2 Nobel Prize winners and a globally renowned scientist and environmental activist. The first is Marie Sklodowska-Curie. As you know, she got double Nobel in physics and then in chemistry. And she said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we might fear less." On a similar tone, Rita Levi-Montalcini, Nobel in Physiology and Medicine, said, "I tell young people, do not think of yourself, think of others. Think of the future that awaits you. Think about what you can do and do not fear anything." And to conclude with Vandana Shiva, who received the Right Livelihood Award, also sometimes called Alternative Nobel Prize. "You are not Atlas carrying the world on your shoulder. It is good to remember that the planet is carrying you," and all of us, of course. Thank you again, grazie, for being part of this forum.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Angela. Many inspirational points, and I like also specifically for the work that we are doing, what you mentioned, that only by asking the researcher why it is important what you do, also the importance of framing and to start to ask a question is very, very relevant. Thank you so much, Angela. Amal, would you like to introduce now Brenda Behan? Welcome, Brenda. We are
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
to have you.
Welcome, Brenda. The next speaker will be Mrs. Brenda Behan. She is the Director of Gender Protection and Inclusion Service, UN World Forum Program. Mrs. Brenda Behan is an experienced humanitarian and international development operations manager and engineer. She is currently serving as a Director of Gender with the United Nations World Food Program, focusing on supporting gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. Prior to this role, Brenda served as a Deputy Regional Director for the WFP Eastern Africa Bureau, as the Senior Deputy Country Director in Kenya, and in technical engineering roles with WFP and the US government. She has experience in relief, resilience, refugees, and capacity strengthening and emergency response. Brenda holds a master's degree in community and economic development and a bachelor degree in engineering. She has diverse experiences, so the floor or the air is yours, Brenda.
Thank you very much, Amal, and hello to all of the women and the men here at the forum. It's a delight to join you, albeit virtually, and I hope your session is really going well. I've listened just to a couple of the speakers before me, so really fascinated to hear from them also. And really to hear from them about some of the really pressing social issues of today, and to hear, you know, that commitment of the scientists in the room and on the panel, and the women scientists in particular, to really bring this power of science and technology to help solve these issues. And I'm actually quite fascinated by your idea of this science diplomacy and how that plays into helping us all look at these issues in different ways, and support the resolution of some of the big problems that we face today. So as Amal mentioned, I work with the United Nations World Food Program, or known as WFP. In WFP, we focus on food security and nutrition. And my team in particular focuses on gender protection and social inclusion in the context of that work of WFP. WFP is the world's largest humanitarian organization, and we focus on saving lives in emergencies, but also using that food assistance to build pathways to peace and stability and prosperity. A lot of the people that we seek to support are in the midst or recovering from conflict, from disasters, natural disasters, or more slow onset and impact of climate change. So we're really supporting the people who are at the risk of going hungry or who are malnourished. And 2/3 of those people live in conflict settings. The majority of them are women, and many of them live in very hard to reach places with limited access to services. We also implement some long-term resilience projects, and those are really aimed at addressing some of the climate change issues that people are facing in primarily in rural, but also in urban communities. Today, there are about 309 million people in the world who are suffering acute hunger. The needs today are really far greater than the resources that are available. So we have a situation of growing needs, primarily driven by conflict, but also driven by climate change. But really a sort of a flat resourcing base for the actors who are seeking to assist people in crisis, and to also build these pathways to longer term resilience. So at the World Food Program, for example, in 2024, we have an estimated needs base of about $20.8 billion, aiming to reach 146 million of the people who are most in need. And these people are in countries which today are not always in the headlines, a bit suffering from this forgotten crisis syndrome. So we're talking most of the people that we are assisting are in countries Yemen, Somalia, Sudan, Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo are the 5 largest operations that we have, and they are not always in the headlines today. But of course, other countries which are more in the headlines, we are also supporting Haiti and the Gaza Strip, and also Ukraine. We're faced now with, I think you all will have seen, very devastating news coming out of the Israel-Hamas war and the threat of famine in 2024 in our backyards, and that's really devastating for us to be even talking about or thinking about. And so WFP is an important humanitarian actor, but I think just thinking about the topic of your forum here and the focus on not only science but on partnerships. WFP really doesn't do any of this alone, cannot do any of this alone. So what we need to do in terms of partnerships is very much at the heart. Individual entities can make strides in trying to address food security and malnutrition globally, but it's really when we come together that we can amplify our impact. So collaborative efforts and partnerships, I would say joint diplomacy also is super important, and we work with governments, we work with donors, recipient governments, we work with international financial institutions, with central banks, with the other humanitarian organizations, with the communities and the people themselves. And that's where my team really has a strong role to play in WFP, is looking at the people we are trying to reach and those that might have intersecting vulnerabilities, and to understand them better. But we also work with universities and with researchers and scientists like yourselves, with the private sector and innovation and knowledge partners in general. And that really, for me, is a little bit the key for us all to be thinking about, is how we do better partner with each other to accelerate progress and to address some of these huge issues. So scientists at large, I think are a very important partner in this, and I'm really delighted to see also that there's a session later in the forum that's talking about innovation in agriculture and food security, including a gender lens. So that sounds like a really interesting session. I think that science has a huge role to play in food security, really across all of the food system, looking at how we develop new agricultural approaches, but also how we revive ancestral knowledge in food security and agricultural work. How do we employ the climate smart technologies, which are new, but also some of them are very ancient technologies? How do we support more equitable transport and transformation of waste? And how do we improve storage technologies? And how do we reduce food waste across the entire value chain and food system? And WFP also is a very active player in making sure that we're trying to use the most advanced technologies in food systems at large, but also in our humanitarian work and how we provide assistance. And we, wherever there are markets that are functioning, we try to provide cash to people. And cash is important when people are suffering from shocks and from a crisis, and there are markets that are working. This is a manner in which we can provide a little bit of an economic bridge that keeps economic systems going and keeps people from falling further behind. And we have in this cash-based transfers, we have about $2.9 billion in cash-based transfers. We reach about 50 to 60 million people, depending on the year, with cash. And here we try to bring in really our lens of gender equality, recognizing that women's financial inclusion and digital financial inclusion in particular is lagging far behind. So we have a huge gender gap in terms of that digital financial inclusion. And here we work in partnership with the ministers of finance, with central banks, with the financial service provision sector, the telecom companies and money transfer operators, and look at also what are the issues that can be differentiated among genders. And we see that often women are more excluded from digital technologies. They're more excluded from financial systems, from financial markets, and from financial services at large. And the people that we support are often unbanked. And this cash-based transfer is something that can enable them to have their first interaction, their first accounts, and also bring forward the ability for them to build financial literacy and to build their business skills at the same time. So we work also on economic empowerment alongside of our cash-based transfers. I think also, for me, science in the context of food security and nutrition, and the ability for us in organizations like WFP to connect with organizations and forum like the Women in Science Forum, such as this, is really also to think about some of these barriers and some of these technologies, and what the science can bring that also understands the inclusion and exclusion elements, the gendered barriers that women might face, the exclusion that people might face based on ethnicity or based on ability or disability, and to understand those, and to understand how science can support a more inclusive food system at large. And I think you also have a session, I believe, and there have been some discussions by earlier panelists around the use of artificial intelligence. And for me, this is something really that I'm looking to communities like these women scientists to make sure, because it is such a new area, because it is an area that also has so much promise for food science, for agriculture, for the humanitarian actors. But we are not the experts here, and we know that there can be a lot of bias that is built into artificial intelligence, and in particular, gender bias is one of the things that I think is being built into this technology as we speak today, also due to the limited number of women versus men engaged in developing those technologies. But I think that's probably a small part of what you're speaking about in this forum. I see that you're also making connections to health, to agriculture, to artificial intelligence and technologies at large. So I really welcome the opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about your work, and for you to know a little bit more about WFP and our work, both in humanitarian but also in resilience building. And welcome all of your insights and your ideas on how we can better deliver on inclusive assistance that understands all of the intersecting vulnerabilities that people face, especially in times of shock and crisis, and see how science can support us both in the humanitarian work, but also looking at the broader agri-food systems and how we understand those specific challenges and how we work together in partnership to solve them. So thank you very much, Amal, for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from all of the other speakers and
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your informative speech, and I hope we can open the discussion at the end, because all your talks are very valuable. Thanks a lot. Norina.
Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you, Brenda. There was a lot of valuable insights, and we could start, of course, with all of you, start the conversation right now. But I would like to introduce Emanuela Colombo, and I'm really look forward to listening to her. As a Emanuela Colombo is currently full professor at the Department of Energy at Politecnico di Milano in Italy. She has also been covering the role of Rector's Delegate to Cooperation and Development since 2005. Over the last decade, she has been developing a strong interest in the interrelations between energy, environmental, and sustainable development, access to energy, and advanced energy methodologies for performance and impact evaluation. She has been the scientific coordinator of many different international projects. In 2011, she introduced a new track at Politecnico di Milano in energy engineering, focused on energy for development. In 2012, she has been named chairholder of the UNESCO Chair on Energy for Sustainable Development at adjunct professor at the Nelson Mandela Africa Institute of Science and Technology in Tanzania. She has been appointed by the Italia Conference of Directors within the National Council for Cooperation and Development. Emanuela, do you have a presentation, right?
Yeah, if it is possible, I will share, and I see if the technology will assist.
We hope so.
Okay, so as an engineer.
Yes, an engineer. Yes.
So thank you very much, and it's really a pleasure for me to have received this invitation to the World Forum for Women in Science 2024, and I'm really thankful to Professor Amal and also Dr. Nerina. I think it's very important that we are all together speaking about science and partnership. Many things have already been said, but let me say that as Dr. Bo was saying, I think science has a lot of advantages, and some of them we will talk about later. But one is that science is able to teach us to make mistakes. I think that today we are scared, and especially the young generation, they are scared about the failure, because this fashion society, the social media are presenting a reality that is always a successful story. But we know that with science, we are able to understand how many advantages can come from the mistakes, from the failure, which cannot be considered failure. In the future, they will be success. So thanks to science, we can learn also this very important part. And I think it's a key message for our young people. And also partnership, as has already been said by many of the previous speakers, like Angela and also Beatrice, I think we can work alone. This is very clear. If we still think that we can work alone, whoever we are, even a Nobel Prize, we are failing in understanding the complexity of the society of today. So I'm just going to present 3 points. One is I'm going to introduce a little bit where I'm coming from, which is a technical university, so engineering, architecture, and design. But even if we are very technical university, we have understood how relevant is sustainable development for all of us. Second point is I will make an example out of the energy sector, which basically is my major and is also one of the SDGs, and I will come to some, let's say, very humble conclusion or takeaway messages that are part of my background and from the experience that I have achieved thanks to the cooperation with many other colleagues at the global level. So I'm from Politecnico di Milano. I'm a nuclear engineer by training, but then I have dedicated part of my life in enlarging a little bit my engineering background, and now, as Marina was saying, I'm Director's Delegate to Science Diplomacy. I'm coming from Politecnico di Milano, which is a technical university founded in 1863, so we have more than 116 years of history. And despite we are a technical university focused on engineering, architecture, and design, as you can see from the new statement of the mission, we strongly believe in sustainable development, and especially we are working hard in order to increase our capacity to face the scientific and technological challenges accordingly to an ethical dimension, in order to be able really to be in line with what sustainability means, but also as a synonym of equity, inclusion, and the shared growth. We are the first university in Italy, and we are recently with the new QS ranking a few days ago, we have learned that we are among the 25 international school in engineering and among the top 10 in design and architecture. A new transformative strategic plan. It's very important to remark that the first time ever, last year, beginning of January, Professor Donatella Asciuto started being the rector of Politecnico di Milano, and she is the first female in our history. And she has brought a lot of new insight into our vision. You see here the transformative strategic plan 2022 to 2025, where we can understand that still we focus on education and learning as well as research, because they are the fundamental element of the academia, but we strongly believe in the power of people, because without people we can rely on technology, we can rely on policy or in any economic model. And also we have a big vision on science, on social responsibility. I mean, we think that what we do in teaching and what we do in research need to have an impact on the society in a wide manner. And we have been inspired by, let's say, exogenous input. And the first one is for sure the complexity of the SDGs, of the Agenda 2030. So we have enriched our first mission of education, our second mission of research, and our networking capability by keeping in mind as a backbone of our thinking the Agenda 2030 as a transformative agenda. But also we have been inspired by some of the elements that have been mentioned by previous speaker, like science diplomacy. In the recent declaration 2021 during the COVID pandemic by the European Commission, we have learned that the COVID pandemic was a kind of clock alarm for science in order to recognize the urgency to increase interest and public trust in science in order to contract disinformation like it happened during the COVID, but also the need to deliver research results that are able to solve the global challenges. Okay, we can do research for patenting, we can do research for publication, and we have to do because we are researchers and scientists, but also we have to keep an eye on the impact, on the direct impact of our research activity into the society in order to improve the quality of the life of the people. And also very important in this, let's say, framework is the understanding of new paradigms of international cooperation, as has been mentioned by many of you, on science, technology, and innovation to support and to keep on international and to keep alive international relationship. So we have decided to open this floor to science diplomacy, and basically we tackle science for diplomacy, which means to work in order to develop projects that can have an impact on development, and science in diplomacy, which is much more related to the capacity of science to inform the policy-making process with evidence-based result. So these are some of the things that we are doing in cooperation and development. We have more than 100 projects with almost all the departments of Politecnico di Milano which are engaged. We are working in all the continents, even if the African continent represents for us a very relevant regional areas with the 70% of the projects that are running in the continent. We are also working a lot with international organizations. We have 2 UNESCO chairs at Politecnico di Milano. We are working with with UNIDO, with UN Habitat, and with UNO in order to establish some center of excellence in our university. But we know that we are a technical university, so we don't have much the language of diplomacy, the language of policy. So we have started a process to train our students, starting from the PhD level, which represent a good level, in order to pass this language to the students. So we have started in 2023 a PhD course on science diplomacy for researchers in order to fill in the gap between science and policy. And we are also very active at the European level within the European Science Diplomacy Alliance, and also within the recently established working group with a different item. And we are quite also active in Italy in this moment, where Africa and international cooperation are very relevant due to the G7 presidencies and also due to the Piano Mattei. Coming back to an example, we're going a little bit more deeply on a specific example where my experience is longer, let's say, and is more practical. Looking at SDG 7, we know that the just energy transition, especially with regard to global level, but also with an eye on the African continent, is a research challenge, but it's also an ethical challenge. Energy is very important for the society, but the energy climate development nexus requires a good balance between using energy and also saving it. Also, we know that the African energy sector will have a crucial influence for the global and the just energy transition everywhere. From one side, Africa needs a sustainable energy system to assure universal access and to boost local socioeconomic development in line with the Agenda 2063 of the continent. But also at global level, we know that without Africa on board, it will be very difficult to achieve SDG 7 as well as the Paris Agreement. Also because we have to remember that Africa is the continent where home to many of the raw materials and the rare earth that are necessary for the energy transition in the rest of the world. And we know that the black swan effect, as many of you has already mentioned, can contribute to, increase, to enlarge the divide between Africa and the rest of the world. The reduced investment can harshen inequalities, but also the loss of job can impact on energy service affordability. And if we remember what has happened with in 2022, let's say in 2020, from 2020 to 2022, with the COVID first, and then with the war in Russia, we know that what we have considered black swans, probably today, they are considered permanent crisis. We don't have the time to exit from one crisis that another one is opening. So probably, since I'm an engineer, let me say that this is the new boundary condition that we have to face. And this is very important for all of us. So we have new emergencies, but also we have new needs. And if you think to what has happened in Europe with the gas shortages, but also to what has happened in Africa with the food insecurity and the energy insecurity followed by the war in Russia, then we can always say that all these crises sooner or later will affect those who are vulnerable categories or vulnerable regions. And we have to keep an eye on it when we have to think about a just energy transition or any transition that need to be just. And I'm going to conclude by bringing on this slide, let's say 6 takeaway messages that come from my experience, as I said, in science and partnership. I make references, I want to be a little bit evidence-based. I make reference to one specific project, which is the long-term Europe-Africa Renewable Energy Partnership, LEAP-RE project, which is considered a flagship project between the African Union and the European Commission. It's a big project, more than 90 partners, 30 million, 5 years long. So it's really a huge project. 3 pillars, 3 takeaway from science. We need much more institutional capacity building, as many of you has already mentioned. Science capacity for science. We need to generate or to train the next generation of scientists, because if we don't have local scientists, then we don't have any innovation to happen. And the science is an instrument of dialogue, even when criticism are across countries or situation of wars are there. Research for local development. We need the ERC, we need the top in-class research, but also we need responsible research that can have an impact on the different territories. And so we need the tailored innovation. And we need a multidisciplinary approach. I'm a nuclear engineer by training, but I have learned so many things by discussing with economists, with social scientists, with doctors, with different kind of disciplines, because all these disciplines in science can bring a new vision to the same problem. And then when all these disciplines are together, we can take out of the blue a new solution that was not on our table before the discussion. 3 points on the partnership. We need multi-stakeholder networking, and I think this is a very good occasion to have it, because all the players from the institutional perspective, they have different contribution to be brought, but also we need intergenerational vision. We often discuss about the importance of having youth within the project, and I 100% am in line with it, but I also have learned a lot by intergenerational exchange, having project in which we have elderly people, let's say like me, and younger people. I think we can learn from each other, because also experience is a value, like the freshness that comes from the young people. And also it's very important, but it was very much discussed by other colleagues, gender and cultural balancing. We are all unique human beings, female, male, different culture, different religions. And I think, again, in this complexity of the global challenges, we can find a solution only if we are able to work together. There was this very nice tense by an Italian, let's say, writer, who was saying that we are all angels, but with a single wing, and therefore we can fly only if we hug each other. So this is the only way to discover the limit of the possible, to go a little bit beyond and to enter the impossible. And this was my favorite quotation from Blaise Pascal. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot for your presentation. I think you touch the most important points, like all speakers till now, that the most important is partnership. Before science, we have to partnership with each other to solve the problems, because we are in one world. After COVID-19 or during COVID-19, it was obvious that we couldn't work alone. We have to cooperate to each other and so on. And maybe it will lead to my questions at the end, but after we will finish all speakers. Thanks a lot for your inspiring talk as well. The next speaker will be Dr. Charles Lepon. Is the director of the industry initiative at the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, Next Einstein Forum, or Next Einstein Initiative, with over a decade of industry experience in data analysis, business intelligence, and project management. Charles has excelled in fostering partnerships between AIMS and various industry leaders across Africa. He holds PhD in computational and applied mathematics. He is passionate about improving educational opportunities, particularly in mathematics and science. Charles founded the Young African Technologies Initiative to promote education through technologies. It was a privilege also to host a representative from Next Einstein Forum at our second forum, Women in Science, World Forum for Women in Science in Egypt in 2019. So that the air is yours, Dr. Charles.
Thank you very much. I'm going to present. It's very exciting to be part of this conversation.
It's second time for your institute to be part of our forum, by the way.
Yes, and it's always a pleasure for us to.
It's our pleasure.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So thanks for inviting EMS to be part of this very interesting conversation. I'm not going to repeat what the other colleague said, because we are building on each other presentation. I'm going to start by presenting EMS. I don't know if this is actually working. But I wanted to start with the statistics. I'm not going to go through the detail of that, just to give you a perspective of where we stand in Africa in terms of the number of young Africans entering STEM, and then the funding that African government actually provide as a percentage of the GDP, the contribution of research output, Why is African government are obliged to outsource STEM-related services? Why we do have only few African researchers that are really African? Those are kind of non-statistics, and one of the data sources is the African Development Bank that I got it here. There's another statistic about the global workforce that will grow, and the imbalance between the number of young people entering the workforce versus the number of formal jobs that we create in Africa. So yes, many people have been talking about Africa. I'm going to focus on that. So what is EMS? EMS is the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. Our vision is to enable a prosperous Africa, propelled by innovative education and mathematical sciences. That's our core vision. Our mission is really to empower the young African to be creative leaders. We really wanted these people to be at the center of sustainable development in Africa. So that's what we're trying to do. For the past 2 decades, we just celebrated our 20 years anniversary. We have been able to graduate over 3,000 African students with a master in mathematical sciences. And someone mentioned that it's very difficult to have more women in math. It's true. Our gender breakdown is 38%. 17% of them are staying in Africa. I've heard one of the speaker talking about brain circulation versus brain drain. I like that notion. I think the world is becoming a global village. We just need to collaborate and do partnership. So if you see the map down here, we have 5 campuses or centers of excellence across Africa, in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Cameroon, in Ghana, and Senegal. We're looking forward to kind of expand this model across the continent. So now the Next Nation Forum, I think, Nerina, thank you very much for interacting. I'm sad that I cannot be in person in Italy, maybe for some simple reason about science diplomacy. I wanted to zoom in the Next Nation Forum. I think the commission for us to connect science to humanity. Many of the speakers spoken about it. We really wanted to make science something that is human, right? It's not just abstract stuff. We are solving critical challenges of society. There are 3 things that we want to do with the Next Nation Forum. One is to celebrate excellence, particularly of Africa, in science and technology. You can name it, mathematical, engineering, or art. So we really wanted to celebrate excellence of the young people. The second thing we want to do is really to inspire and empower a new generation of Africa to challenge the status quo in science and technology. The third thing that we wanted to do is to create opportunity for these young people to be game-changing, people who can actually put forward game-changing application for science to improve human condition in Africa and globally. We believe at EMS that African young people are the driving force for the African scientific renaissance. So I think it's important for us to focus on the youth. That's why I really wanted to introduce you to this initiative that I discussed with Nerina. We are planning to organize what we call the Next Nation Forum African SDG Week. Why? Because when you talk about sustainable development goals, the youth participation is minimal. Many young people don't even know about the SDG, not in terms of the numbers of a wedding, but in terms of the impact, but also the contribution in advancing or accelerating that. So we really wanted to have a youth-led innovation for sustainable development in Africa and showcasing sustainable development advances across the continent. We really wanted the youth to define the profile of the individual countries where they stand in terms of SDG. Remember, Agenda 2030 going to end in 6 years. But if you ask the question to say, where are African countries in each of these 17 SDGs, they're not at the same level. Why? Because of a different reason. We wanted the youth to enter that space, that ecosystem, and participate in ensuring that we're advancing this global agenda. So these are the objectives. We really wanted to raise awareness of SDG for underrepresented groups like youth and women, and accelerate public participation. We want to do this through the Next Action Forum framework that we have. Right now we have 54 ambassadors across the continent, 1 per African countries. We want to empower them to be at the center of those conversations. Those are some specific objectives that I actually listed there. One is to showcase youth-led initiatives. If they want to participate, what is their approach? These are PhD students, master students, they're also working. What will be their participation? The second one is really to empower their voices. If you have been participating in a lot of global conversation or global platform, myself, I'm a member of the UN World Data Forum. We don't have the voice of the youth really pronounced the way we want to actually get them involved, right? The third one is really to provide, to promote SDG inclusivity and inspire collective action. You already mentioned that we cannot do this alone. It's not a one single organization effort. We need to develop cross-cutting, cross-sector partnerships so that we advance this agenda, but not leaving someone behind. I think the youth have been seen, not that they have been excluded, but they were not actually participating the way they wanted to. I'm gonna zoom into the fostering inclusive partnership in my other slide. So what I wanted to do in simple expression is give me one SDG and give me the map of Africa and tell me where each country stands. So in this map, you're gonna see some countries. This is just like dump data. I'm just giving you an illustration of what we wanted to do in terms of building the profile of the continent on SDGs. So some countries can be green to say good progress. Some countries will be yellow to say business as usual. And some other countries might be very challenging in terms of those indicators that we said. We wanted the young people, the next ambassador, to go work as a team of 54 people, develop the map, develop the profile for each country, group them, consolidate, and we see which kind of color per SDG. I gave an example of gender equality. And then we'll build from the 17th SDG and see. It's not like a blaming game to say you're not doing well in this area, but it's actually trying to acknowledge where they are, but also develop partnership and learn from each other to say, as young people, how can we learn from country A to advance a specific SDG in country B? That's actually what we wanted to do from the whole continent. Now, trying to contribute to the topic of the panel, that's just a background to what we are doing at EMS. I just wanted to say that there are 7 things people mention, but I don't want to repeat it. I think capacity building is very important, and capacity building in Africa makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of things that we really needed to do in Africa, but we don't have capacity. It's important for us to advance SDG. It's important for us to enhance research opportunities. There's a lot of young people that really wanted to do the peership. They don't have money, they don't have a program. It's important to really promote diversity and inclusivity because it's very important to ensure that not leaving someone behind. And science diplomacy, I'm going to go in deep in terms of science diplomacy. This is quite a very important topic for us. But empowering the future generation, when we talk about Agenda 2030, Africa, the African Union has Agenda 2063. But how many people are going to be around in 2063 if it's not these young people? I think it's important for us to empower those young generations so that they will take what we will actually leave, they will inherit a little bit ahead. But it's not like we need to wait, we actually need to include them in the conversation so that they understand what we're actually talking when it comes to sustainable development. And it's important for Africa to be a little bit globally competitive. If you don't have the capacity, how will you compete globally? If you don't have enough expertise in the research, how will you do that? Here's the summary of what I believe we need to do. From any institution, I think it's important to enhance institution capacity and facilitate knowledge exchange. When you don't have expertise, you're learning from others. But the learning should be bidirectional because there are things that maybe people can learn from the South versus the North. And for us to promote scientific and technological advancement. That's number one. Number two, some people mentioned it. For us to really improve the African scientific community, it's important to provide funding because many African governments do not have funding to sponsor their research. So for me, provide access to funding opportunities is very important. The research facility, the type of labs that we're talking about, maybe we don't have universities in Africa that have those kind of labs, but it's important to kind of share this kind of resources and foster innovation and promote diversity and inclusivity. The third one, which is equally very important, is for us to promote collective action. And have a little bit of trust between nations. We need to balance a little bit the way we actually do business, because science is also business, to facilitate the dialogue and international cooperation so that we can provide, for example, international mobility. So when we talk about science diplomacy, you know how many African students travel to participate in international conferences. Why? Because of visa issues. So what I'm putting on the table is, in science diplomacy, we need to ensure that we build trust between nations to ease international mobility. That if the students are traveling for research, they should be given a visa, but for certain reasons, for certain countries, sometimes it's very difficult for the young people to be provided with those opportunities. These are the summary of what I will actually put on the table when it comes to networking, science diplomacy, and partnership. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you very much
Thank you very much, Charles. Very, very interesting. And there are so many inspirations in these talks that said, I think we are running out of time, but I'm very pleased and very honored to introduce our last speaker, and that I thank you so much for being here. Priscilla Colibe-Amante. She has a PhD from the Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana, and a postdoctoral training from the University of Michigan. Right now, she's associate professor in Kumasi, Ghana, and she's a neuropharmacologist with expertise in drug discovery and neurogenetics. Her research focuses on developing better therapeutic options for resistant epilepsy. Priscilla has received the International Rising Talent Award in 2019 for her research. She's a 2019 Women Scientist from the Developing World Early Career Fellow. She's a fellow of the African Science Leadership Programs, an affiliate of the Africa Academy of Sciences, as well as the World Academy of Sciences. And since June 2022, she is the co-chair of the Global Young Academy. Priscilla Colibe-Amante, please, the floor is yours. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nerina, for that introduction. I'd like to quickly share my screen since we are running out of time. I hope you can see this.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that is joining this. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizers of the World Forum for Women in Science for affording me the opportunity to speak today. For me, this is my first time attending this forum, and I'd like to congratulate all who have worked really hard to put this forum together. So the conference theme, which is Envisioning Tomorrow, Science for the SDGs and New Partnerships for Sustainable Futures, resonates profoundly in this our contemporary world, which has been characterized by unprecedented challenges such as climate change and the global health crisis. And these challenges demand very innovative solutions to the highest order. And in this context, I'm sure we all agree up to this point that the guiding principle for our quest for these global solutions is clear, and that is collaboration and then working together. The importance of networking, science diplomacy, and partnership cannot be overstated in driving global progress. These three tend to be interconnected pillars from which we can found collaboration, innovation, as well as collective action towards addressing the most pressing challenges that we currently have. And in forming these partnerships, we believe that there's a need to include the voices of young people. So the organization which I chair or co-chair right now, which is a Global Young Academy, serves as a catalyst for fostering networking, science diplomacy, and partnerships among young researchers and leaders worldwide. As a dynamic platform, the GYA connects emerging talents, facilitating collaboration, knowledge exchange, and then cultural dialogue. At the GYA, we believe that science is the key to creating a better future. And we also believe that young people hold that key and can unlock that great future, which we all desire. We are therefore that community that gives a voice to brilliant young researchers, empowering them to bring those very unique global, interdisciplinary, as well as inclusive perspectives that are guided by evidence, reason, in order to produce that sustainable vision for the future, which we all desire. So what is the Global Young Academy? We are a worldwide network of outstanding researchers and scholars who at every point in time consist of 200 members. And we currently have 407 alumni, and then altogether we represent 101 countries worldwide. Our members are usually selected from a complementary mix between excellence in the research field that they have chosen, as well as their commitment to impacting society positively through outreach. Members, once selected, will serve a 5-year term, after which they are known as our alumni. So what began as a workshop in 2010 for 40 young scholars from 28 countries has now become a group of a very, very diverse membership. And we have a strong presence on 6 continents where we impact science and society. Annually, what we do is we invite applications from scholars that are working in any research-based discipline, including the natural sciences, formal and social sciences, as well as the arts and then the humanities. Majority of our current members happen to be in the natural and then applied sciences, but we also have very significant numbers in the social sciences. GYA members are selected through a process that is very responsive to the changing times and circumstances. And this has contributed to our membership evolving over the years to promote a thoroughly diverse and then inclusive group that currently has a majority of us identifying as female. So majority of our members are women. And this is something we believe is a first among many international science organizations. And so we are very, very, very proud of these achievements. At the GYA, what we aim to do essentially is to support young scientists in career development and independence, to build capacity in the developing world, to engage in interdisciplinary, international, and intergenerational dialogue on scientific issues, as well as to promote science education and then science policy integration. So the GYA thrives on certain principles, which I believe are very much intertwined with the topic of discussion for today. We at the GYA, we actively promote curiosity through mentoring and networking. We foster a global community of early career researchers by providing them with the opportunity to connect, to collaborate, and to learn from one another. And this network helps to ignite the curiosity through the exchange of ideas and experiences. Promoting interdisciplinary. At the GYA, we bring together scholars from various fields, encouraging curiosity-driven research that transcends disciplinary borders. An example of one of our many projects, which is on the slide, is the Citizen Science for Reducing Exposure to Urban Air Pollution. And this is a project that was funded by a grant which we call the Sasha Kagansi Grant. And this is one of the testaments of our commitment to fostering innovative research and supporting the aspiration of early career researchers and scholars. The grants, which is 10,000 euros annually, provides the critical financial support to our members to empower them to pursue projects which are curiosity-driven and that have the potential to address some of the present challenges that we have. We also collaborate across boundaries. GYA's mission, as I mentioned earlier, is inherently global. So it unites young scientists and scholars from around the world to help address complex global challenges. We consider ourselves champions of boundary crossing collaboration with a membership that represents a mosaic of cultures, backgrounds, and perspectives. And so recognizing that our impact is achieved best through the efforts of young people all over the world, the GYA has actively contributed to achieving the objectives of the National Young Academy movement. The Global Young Academy, we aim not to be seen as an umbrella organization for all young academies, but rather as an equal partner and facilitator of a growing network of young academies. So among other things, what we do is that we provide technical support and advice to people who are trying to establish young academies. And we also help to co-organize some regional and global meetings of young academies. Currently, in the world over, we have almost 70 national young academies existing, in addition to other bodies that we term as similar bodies to the national young academies. In addition to that, the GYA is also at the forefront of science diplomacy. We are bridging political and cultural divides through the power of scientific collaboration. An example of such effort of ours is one of our projects or working groups, which is termed the Science Diplomacy in the Americas Working Group. And the aim of this project is to foster scientific and then economic connection between the North, Central, and South America, as well as the Caribbean, Commonwealth countries, the Amazonian countries, and then the Southern Cone. And through the years, we have come to be very well recognized and accepted in the international science community as a valuable contributor. So we do a lot of things as comment via position papers, op-eds, and make timely statements on science and then science policy related issues. And we do that to help to provide the necessary perspectives of the young researcher. And so you very often see us in some of these common fora, such as the United Nations High-Level Political Forum. Now, for us to be able to do the things we do, it's not possible to do it on our own. So we do a lot of collaboration and cooperation with various institutions worldwide. So we are involved with working with external partners in order to achieve the strategic mandate that we've set for ourselves. So there are a lot of organizations we work with. This includes the Leopoldina, which is the National Academy in Germany, the Inter-Academy Partnership, the International Science Council, all European academies, as well as the World Academy of Sciences. And through the years, we have made very, very significant strides in the science policy interface. And recently, we have been invited to join the network of science institutions that provide advice to the United Nations Secretary General Scientific Advisory Board. And this has provided us some connection into the UN system. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that the GYA as a global organization is active in many areas covered by the SDGs, be it through our working groups, by participating in meetings on the implementation and monitoring of the SDGs, or by providing science-based policy advice to policymakers and global science organizations. The GYA exemplifies the transformative power of networking, science diplomacy, and partnerships in helping to shape a sustainable future. And as we look ahead, there's a shared desire for GYA to further expand its network, amplifying its impact and then reaching across diverse communities and regions. And together, united in our commitment to creating positive change and then building a brighter future for the generations to come. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot for for your talk, and thanks a lot for all speakers for their inspiring talks. Narina, are we running out of time? Can we take the two questions here?
I think we can have one or two questions. We can close before 12 o'clock, but we have for 1-2 questions, we can take it if you want.
Yeah, there is one for leveraging the use of technology to address the issue of climate change. We have now 3 speakers. Can we give these questions to the 3 speakers to respond? Dr. Charles?
Yes, so no, thank you very much, Amal, for this question. I will start by just acknowledging that climate change is a global issue, and there's no magic to really address it. I mentioned in my presentation that we need collective action in a way that we build partnership, but collective action also in a way of approaching it. So when the question about leveraging the use of technology, I will mention like AI. AI plays a key role in helping us be more efficient and trying to even reach areas that we wouldn't reach with other resources. It's true that through the use of emerging technology like AI, we'll be able to better understand climate change, collect data, analyze, produce some analytics that give us a sense of where countries are in terms of climate change, but also develop mitigation strategies that can actually be tracked, measured per country for us to really advance and try to reduce the number of emissions across our country in different areas. So that's what I can say in short, that emerging technology should be seen as a good tool for us to advance research in addressing climate change across countries. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Professor Emanuela?
Just a small remark saying that we need new technologies, but for sure, even if we look at some of the net zero scenarios by, for instance, the International Energy Agency, we know that technology are still an issue. So in order to get to that scenario of net zero, we still need new technology that are not yet in the market. So this is for sure 100%, let's say, very important passage. But as was mentioned by the previous speaker, we also need a lot of social innovation and behavioral change, because I think side to side with the technology that will provide the supply, we also have to change a little bit our demand strategy. And this is the place where behavioral change can play a big role. And also the young generation are also very much in line with this new thinking that is definitely need new model for business development, new model for economy, and this kind of new things need to be put on the table. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to get to a net zero or to solve climate change.
Thanks a lot. Professor Priscilla, Global Young Academy, that you have program for climate change.
Yes, so quickly, just what I would like to say is, yes, technology is good. And like the previous speakers have said, we need to develop new technology that is needed to be able to solve some of these problems. But then I also like to add that whenever we talk about technology, we also have to keep in mind the issue of access, that not everybody around the world has as much access as we would like. For instance,
the equity in distributing technology.
Yes. Just give a personal example. I went through the whole day yesterday with a power outage. I currently do not have access to electricity. So access is an issue that we need to consider. And as we develop these tools, we need to consider what grassroots efforts can be put in place to be able to make that technology available to the people who need to use them for us to be able to achieve some of these goals that we've set for ourselves. Thank you.
You raise a very good point, because during COVID-19, all the world was online. But I raised this case because all the world was online, except sometimes in developing countries, because not all developing countries have this equity in accessing the technology, especially for students to access their lectures online, or the students at the far areas or something like that. So that before raising the importance of technology, we have to save the justice in accessing this technology. Otherwise, there will be new discrimination in accessing this technology, especially in education.
Yes.
And it's a new point we have to raise all over the world, that we have to have justice in technology.
Yes.
Thanks for the point. Okay.
But
the next question is from Yemen, but this question for Yemen compatibilizes with my questions. And Angela left. My question was how to facilitate the networking and cooperation and partnerships between stakeholders and individuals away from governmental complications. All the talks were very nice, but all the talks, I think they need governmental supports, but in the countries like in Yemen, Syria, and whatever, how we can support the individuals, scientists, and stakeholders to connect to each other away from governmental complications or away from their own situation. Iraq, or all countries like that, especially for refugee and that scholars scholars at risk situation. How we can do that? Emanuela?
It's really very interesting question, Amal. But I mean, I have mentioned some of the projects that I mentioned. Also, in my experience, we didn't receive any governmental support. So we are a bit lucky because at the level of the European Commission, we have this Horizon proposal rather than other different kind of funding initiative, which are pushing research institutions to cooperate with civil society, to cooperate with private players, without necessarily the engagement of the governmental institution. So this is
that you accept individuals or scientists to connect you directly and to make networking with you, so that you accept scientists or stakeholders to connect with you directly without any governmental support or this letter of recommendation is usually recommended in all funds. You support that?
No, we don't necessarily require, it depends a little bit on the kind of project, but we don't necessarily require a governmental support. I mean, we might require, for instance, we just ran 1 year ago one project that was with 6 Italian universities together with Ethiopia, and we have asked for 2 young lecturers, let's say, in 21 universities in Ethiopia, and what we have asked them is a letter of recommendation, let's say, from their home institution, so without any engagement from the governative point of view. And you may remind that Ethiopia was still under a social critical moment, so we accepted different Ethiopians from different tribes without any trouble, and they were working together. You are raising a very relevant point, which is how far science or how far do we have to accept any imposition from our governmental institution, as it was happening during the Russia crisis. I mean, with the block of the support to Russia, how far do we have to follow up this, or how far do we have to stay to represent the bridge that can connect even those countries that currently are living in a difficult crisis or they are under wars? Because I think there is a role of science that need to stay like the pillars of the big bridges that in the future, once the war will be over, will be those pillars onto which we can really rebuild the bridge. If we stop also the scientific cooperation, then I see it will be much more difficult to come back to a standard situation. So this is a very debatable topic.
My belief, like you, that unofficial networking is more successful than official networking. Maybe we have support from officials, but our networking is not official. And I think it's the success of Women in Science Without Borders and others like IEEE and so on. All successful networking, not only officials, but also it includes others. So that thanks. Science must remain neutral. Okay. Do we have any questions?
No, so Amal, I think we would have a lot of questions, but we do not have a lot of time, so that
so that's close.
Yes, Amal, I would ask kindly Professor Colombo, Professor Mante, and Dr. Kimpolo, if you have, of course, any final remarks before closing.
So can I just quickly to contribute to the Amal's last question? Yes, so when it comes to political tensions, especially within countries, it's one of the things that can be very hard to mitigate or even interfere in, because a lot of these countries are sovereign states, and there's just so much that you can do to intervene in these situations. But then as scientists or young people, what we do is we try to advocate through science and diplomacy to promote cooperation and as much peace as is possible. And then beyond that, at the GYA, what we have an at-risk scholars working group that helps to support young people, young scientists that are coming from some of these regions that have some of these political tensions. And we do our best to help to reintegrate them into other societies once they are able to emerge from their situations. And we work with various institutions that can help provide the support, like CARA, yes. So we do our best, and then we just hope that the organizations that can actually help to mitigate these political tensions are able to find a way to be able to make us live together more peacefully. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. And Charles?
Thank you very much for inviting EMS and being part of this conversation. Here's some few things I wanted to put on the table. One is we will not be able, as a global community, to achieve sustainable development goals if we don't include the youth. It's a very simple way of looking at things. These are people who want to sustain. These are people who want to take the right decision for climate change and all of this. I think youth participation is key. As a scientific community, as I put it there, science should be neutral. We should see science without borders, as you put it for your forum. We need to ensure that across countries, like what we are doing at EMS with the next National Forum, we were able to unite 54 African countries. I think the Global Young Academy is also doing it across countries. We need to have new models. We shouldn't actually just follow the pathway where there is. We should create one that where there's no pathway. Right? I think it's important for us to think out of the box, try to innovate, including this kind of forum, create an environment where we promote peace, we promote science in a very universal way. I think that for me, that is key. I will end by saying that it was Alan Kay who said, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I believe this forum is providing a platform to have conversation where we create it. When you say envision the future, we need to be able to create it. Create it through partnership, create it through network, and then ensuring that young people play a key role. That's what I actually can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Emanuela, do you want to add some final words? We cannot hear you.
Yeah, very few words. Science and partnership again. Partnership are not easy. When we talk in this kind of conference, partnership seems like a very easy thing to be established. But at the end of the day, it requires two elements. One is the time, because it's a time. It requires time to get the same language, to understand each other, to trust each other. And also require to be humble, because you have to recognize that there is an advantage when looking at the others, which is not always the case for different people. And these two value, time, trust, and to be humble, they are part of the scientists, because we know that we can fail. So I think we are in the better position to push this kind of partnership, Amal. Let's try.
Yes. And Amal?
Yes, let's try. Yeah.
Amal, do you have any final words before we?
My final word is to thank all the speakers, all audience, and as I always say, that partnership must transfer to the first SDG, because without partnership, we couldn't do all SDGs. So that thank you for raising that point. Thanks a lot, Nerina.
And I thank you all also, because I am sure and I feel that this panel really summarizes, also the last slides also from Manuela, for example, really summarize what we are trying to do with these forums, embracing transdisciplinary partnership in all the aspects that you have all mentioned. And I thank you really all, and I thank you the audiences. And we apologize for not having more time for your question and you valuable speakers. We could continue, but thank you so much, and please join the other session, and looking forward to the next meeting with you. Thank you so much.